Thanks for staying with us. China's ambassador to the United States, Cui Tinkai, says that Beijing is ready to resume trade talks with Washington, as a top U.S. business lobby in China said nearly half its members are seeing non-tariff barrier retaliation in China due to the trade war. No further talks, trade talks, that is, between top Chinese and U.S. negotiators have been scheduled since the last round ended in a stalemate on May 10. The same day, U.S. President Donald Trump sharply increased tariffs on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods and took steps to levy duties on all remaining Chinese imports.
Negotiations between the United States and China have soured dramatically since early May, when Chinese officials sought major changes to the text of a proposed deal that the Trump administration says had been largely agreed. Acrimony has intensified since Washington last week blacklisted Chinese telecom equipment company Huawei Technology Co. Limited, a potentially devastating blow for the company that has rattled technology supply chains and investors. This ban, a former U.S. government official, Jeff Moon, said will have a great impact on global users and related industries.
I've represented a company before that's been affected by export controls, and export controls have very dramatic effects that are not totally foreseeable. So I'm sure that people were bringing to the White House's attention the impact that this would have on users all around the world. They knew it would have a great impact, but maybe not all the specifics.
But the chairman of China Mobile, China's largest state-owned telecommunications firm, Yang Ji, said that it would continue to do business with Huawei despite a recent blacklisting by the U.S. government.
Huawei is our long-term partner. They have provided us with excellent services and products for many years, and the so-called safety problems never happened. So we think in this field we will keep cooperating with the best company in the world.
Huawei founder has also said he is confident about his company's ability to ride storm, saying his company is prepared to fight a long-term war.
From the start, it was something that could last for a long time. We are preparing to fight a long-term war. We are not preparing to fight a short-term war. For this long-term trade war, the longer we fight it, the stronger we will perhaps become.
U.S. firms are beginning to face retaliation in China for the trade war. This week, Chinese President Xi Jinping urged people to prepare for a new long march. And now, American Chamber of Commerce of China and its sister body in Shanghai said the members face increased obstacles such as government inspections, slower customs clearance, and slower approval for licensing and other applications.
I think we're impacted by 15 to 20% of our revenue has been cut off because of these tariffs. Well, it certainly limits the amount of investment we can afford to do in any given year. Right now, we're struggling with whether we can pass some costs on to our consumers, and I don't think we can. I think our margins are going to shrink. That reduces our profitability. It's going to make it a little harder for us to raise money for future funding rounds. And I think we have yet to see the full implications of what the tariffs will be.
To cope, around 1/3 of companies said they were increasingly focusing their China operations on producing for Chinese customers and not for export, while another 1/3 said they were delaying and cancelling investment decisions. Ibrahim Shita, TVC News.
Joining me on Skype from Washington, D.C. to discuss the trade war ongoing between the U.S. and China is global affairs analyst Calvin Duck. Good to have you on The World Now. Is this the beginning of the end of what could have ended up being a full-blown trade war between the U.S. and China?
Well, I think the fact that uncertainty exists kind of shows what the problem is. Because from point of view, Donald Trump is always saying he's winning, and China's economy is because of the tariff that he's implemented. But he hasn't talked about, and he hasn't really told America how long this is supposed to last.
We have a bit of interference there, but we will try to see what we can do. Now, China's Xi Jinping has actually told his nationals to prepare for difficult times as the global situation gets more complex. How more complex, really, is it likely to get?
I think you get a lot more complex, and what makes it even more complicated is that you also have at the same time the Trump administration enacting protection measures against Huawei and other technology companies, rightfully so, because there are legitimate intellectual property and security concerns. But that's happening at the same time as the trade war, and that's only going to get more complicated. And to further complicate that, even the people in the United States that don't agree with Trump's strategy or lack thereof realize that something needs to be done with China. And so they don't want to stop President Trump from acting, but they just want to know what he's trying to do.
But China didn't take this lying down. It looks like China's retaliation with U.S. companies in China is bringing about this thaw in relationships. U.S. is ready to go into talks, and China is saying, we're ready too.
Yes, and I think that is going to be the biggest push factor to get the Trump administration to move or to act or to bring this to an end. When you have U.S. businesses that are trying to do business in China, and that if they start seeing retaliatory actions, be it getting approvals, permits, just how they do about their daily business, that business community will get Congress and the president to move, because in this country, that's how it works. So I do think as that increases, we'll see closer to an end of the trade tensions with China.
Wouldn't you say that the damage has already been done with what happened with Huawei? But of course, the U.S. has given Huawei some temporary reprieve for 60 or so days. But hasn't the damage really been done? With even about 1 million jobs threatened in the U.S. following this trade spat.
Yes, I think that's true. And I also believe that for a lot of the American people who may not have been as up to date on what was going on with Huawei, with the security concerns, with the intellectual property and all of that, with the different Chinese tech companies, I think that now people are starting to look and see, what is the technology that they have or that the companies use or that they're looking to use as we go into 5G. So no matter what happens, I think that that's already now putting people on edge. And like I said, there's not a clear strategy of how the U.S. is going to handle it, so that adds to the uncertainty.
Calvin Duck, Global Affairs Analyst, thank you so much for joining us.